LB. ALB. It's the time of the culvert wars. The great spring battle here in the north, where frozen lines separate people. And I don't mean in the good way. I mean, they drive a nail through people. There stands the LB, splashing away. Puddles aren't good in the culvert wars.
Well, we're in good shape, I think. This
needs an outlet or something?
Well, it's staying off the driveway, and that's great.
Where's this one? You got a little channel there, huh?
Yeah, it just it's not moving like it was that warm day, so it's okay. I just honestly was splashing in the puddles.
Nice.
Yeah. How you doing, Freddie?
Doing great.
All right.
It's another episode of the podcast.
Oh, that's happening right now, isn't it?
Yeah, and today we're gonna have a sit-down conversation with an old pal of ours, Maddy Frawley from up at Voyageur.
Maddy's been around as long as I can remember. Been one of the original trail kids from my time up the Gunflint. Remember going up to that summer volleyball with Maddy and interviewing all her pals that were working up the trail for the summer. But Maddy was one that never left.
10 years. Voyageur.
She really dropped in to the whole culture and community of the Gunflint Trail, Wilderness Edge, outfitting, the lifestyle, the whole shebang. She took it on and made it her own.
Volunteer at the fire department up the Gunflint. Across the board, as you're saying, immersed in the lifestyle of the Gunflint Trail. And we're going to hear today from our conversation with Maddy what's coming next in her story.
Hey Paddle and Portage listeners, this is Kate from Bending Branches. If you're like us, paddling isn't just something you do, it's part of who you are. And when you're out on the water, your paddle isn't just a tool, it's your connection to the northwestern Wisconsin. We obsess over every detail, making them lighter, stronger, and built to last, because we know what it's like to be deep in the wilderness, where every ounce of weight matters and every stroke counts. We test our paddles the best way we know how, by using them, on winding rivers, glassy lakes, and carrying them on backcountry portages. Crafted with tradition, engineered for adventure, designed by paddlers for paddlers. So, before your next trip, stop by your local paddle shop or outfitter and find the Bending Branches paddle that's right for you. Because great adventures start with great gear, and the right paddle makes all the difference.
And joining us now on the Paddle and Portage podcast is Maddy Frawley. Been living up the Gunflint Trail for a few years and has about a decade of experience working and living up the trail. Maddy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful sunny day in March, and we were talking about how winter is sort of winding down, although it's brisk this morning, and there was some ice on some spots around the Gunflint on your way down and so forth, but mostly clear roads, thanks to our outstanding crew at the Cook County Highway Department, keeping the trail clear for us during the winter months. And so I want to talk with you about your experiences living up the trail, working at Voyageur Canoe Outfitters, which is like at the very end of the trail, literally the end of the trail, and what life was like up there for these years that you've been up there now, both living and working, 3 years full-time, like on-site, and a total of about 10 years working at the outfitter. I'm saying that in a sense, there's some like past tense or like a new chapter because you're leaving the trail. Mm-hmm. I know that's sad for a lot of trail folk, as well as Matt and Cassidy at Voyageur. They're the co-owners and kind of running the operation now. along with you and your partner Clay, who've been there for these few years now. So let's talk about what brought you to the Gunflint, first of all, 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up going to the Boundary Waters as a teen. My family wasn't super outdoorsy, but I somehow got connected with Camp Widgewagon, and they sent me off on my own to kind of get to know the Boundary Waters, and I immediately fell in love after my first trip. Ironically, I switched to backpacking like shortly after that, but I still always loved the Boundary Waters and kind of wanted to find a way to return. After my first summer of college, I sort of looked into outdoorsy jobs in Minnesota. My sister had worked at an outfitter on the Ely side, and so searching around, I just happened to find Voyageur, and I feel really lucky that I did, because obviously it's really stuck with me. And so I kind of deep dove into it because I had never been to the Gunflint Trail before and didn't really know that Voyageur was at the very end. Like, I knew about Grand Marais, but I had no idea that I was going to be an hour and a half, like 60 miles almost from there. But it ended up being an incredible first summer, and I had a really cool crew and super awesome managers that year that really, just kept me coming back. So.
And where'd you go to college?
I went to Lewis and Clark College out in Oregon. So.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. That's in Portland?
It is in Portland, yeah.
And so is that where you got the backpacking bug or got into that scene?
Yeah, kind of. I was part of my school's like college outdoors program and led trips there. And so I got to learn about backpacking a little bit more. Just kind of kept connected with the outdoors. It always was a major like outlet for me and kind of a way to de-stress when I was in school. So, yeah.
How was your experience in Oregon, living out there?
I liked it. Yeah, I don't think I could ever see myself like living in Portland full time, but I did really love it. And yeah, the school was really cool. I learned a lot. I majored in environmental studies fittingly, so got to really explore that realm. And yeah.
And did you do much paddling out there on rivers or sea kayak type stuff?
Did a little bit of kayaking, not too much. We did some like river kayaking in Northern California and did a couple whitewater rafting trips as like a assistant leader. I'm not a raft guide at all, but there were some cool water experiences, but none of the peaceful flat water paddling like the Boundary Waters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you graduate from Lewis and Clark. You're out in Oregon, and then is that when you found this job and you were feeling you wanted to get back to the Boundary Waters, and you see this job posting from Voyageur in like 2015 time frame?
Yeah, well, it was after my first summer of college, so I was a freshman.
So this was like you were working during the summer as well, and then going back.
Exactly. Yeah, I would go back to school and then come back to Voyageur. So pretty much like grew up on the trail. I feel like all of my big summers in college were spent on the trail, and I didn't really do much in between. So yeah.
And that's like a big part of trail life and the Ely scene during the summer are the people who come to work at the outfitters. Yeah. We've done some episodes in the past. Baxter and I've done some episodes about trail kids was one episode we did, and we just get to know some of these people, like the young guys from Voyageur who did the Ely Challenge last summer. Yeah. And they're largely like people who come in May or very early June and stay through August, September, that window. And there's like a lot of people that do that. It's a whole world, like we connect with them again at like the canoe races and stuff, but largely the public in terms of the spotlight is not, there's sort of unsung heroes in a way, but it becomes like a tight-knit group of people up there. Was that your experience, like connecting with people through that? Yeah, absolutely. I think, we would do like weekly volleyball nights at Voyageur. That was kind of our claim to fame, where all the other outfitters would come and we'd have some friendly volleyball competition. And that tradition still exists, which is really fun to see it continue on. But yeah, I mean, we got super tight-knit as a crew every summer. I've met so many of my like best friends working as a summer crew member at Voyageur, and and then getting to know kind of the other outfitters and seeing them at a Hungry Jack or going to canoe races and having some friendly competition was always like a huge part of the community, and just really fun. Mm-hmm. Is there a lot of late night revelry that occurs in these groups as well? Ooh, what do you mean by that? Like college sort of vibes going on. I think
It less and less, actually. Like, I mean, maybe it's my perspective now as a manager, not seeing as much of the ins and outs of it. But I think my first few years, it was definitely college vibes, like a lot of fun nights out, a lot of Hunger Jack nights, those kinds of things. But I think the people who are coming up now, the new generation, sort of is a lot more tame, and like I like to see that people really excited about like hiking to high cliffs at night and watching the sunset versus like,
2 a.m.
partying and then trying to drive a towboat the next morning.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, interesting. And did your partner Clay is living at Voyageur with you now and in the yurt at Voyageur, which I definitely want to hear more about living in the yurt. But did you meet through the job at Voyageur?
Yeah. Yep. We met in the summer of 2019 working at Voyageur, and it was just kind of a summer fling at first, and then we ended up continuing to date long distance. He was living in Duluth and I was living in the Twin Cities, and eventually he decided to move down to the Twin Cities and kind of work there, and then pandemic hit, and just kind of continued on. Then after in like 2022 we got asked by Matt and Cassidy to move up there full time, so we've been together I think almost 6 years now. So
And what were your primary responsibilities, or what were you doing at Voyageur
in that first summer?
Yeah, like these past few years where you've been sort of more in a leadership position.
Yeah. So as managers, we in the winter time it's pretty chill. I'm kind of in charge of like taking all the reservations and connecting with guests and getting their trips planned, giving routing advice and stuff like that. Summers, as you can imagine, are really busy, lots of long days. But yeah, getting guests out, training all of our staff on like how to work in an outfitter, how to drive a towboat, all the ins and outs. All the stuff, yeah. How to pack the gear. It's a lot of training, and so that's the big part of the summer is just managing staff and getting guests on the water. I'm like, me and Matt are kind of the people that do all of the routing advice and go over maps and stuff with guests and give fishing advice and things like that. So yeah.
And is it like 7 days a week kind of grind in the summer?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's long days for sure. Clay and I are lucky to have Matt and Cass around. They try to give us days off so we can explore and see the area. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely 12, 14-hour days sometimes. And it's a grind for sure. Yeah.
Hey, Claire.
Hey, Dan.
So, Claire, it's March. The days are getting longer and the weather is getting a little warmer. We're starting to pick up the pace with our preparation for summer. Ice out is still a month or so away, so what's going on up at Sawbill this time of year?
March is an exciting month for us at Sawbill. Now that permits are available, many of our favorite customers are busy planning canoe trips for the coming season, and we're busy helping them plan. We are available by phone or email to help you work through the most basic or the more complicated aspects of planning a canoe trip.
We also have a wealth of information available at sawbill.com. From route planning to a weather archive. You can find many of your answers there, in addition to making gear and canoe reservations.
Speaking of route planning, we have a custom Sawbill area map and route guide that we mail out for free. Just request it on our website, sawbill.com. These iconic Boundary Waters routes were first written and described by my grandparents and parents many years ago.
Sawbill is celebrating our 69th season this year, and the 10th season with us as the third generation at the helm.
That's right. For 7 decades now, Sawbill Canoe Outfitters has focused exclusively on helping people have successful canoe trips in the Boundary Waters. It's literally all we do. We are particularly excited about all of our return customers that we get to see year after year, many of them becoming like extended family and our lifelong friends.
There is magic at Sawbill that Claire and her family have created, and that magic is carried forward each year by all the fantastic crew that work here and the many customers that visit us time and time again.
There's still plenty of time to plan a canoe trip for this season and to enjoy the Boundary Waters. Find us at sawbill.com, and we look forward to hearing from you.
What I'm really curious about now that you're leaving is not why you're leaving or that type of thing. You're moving back to the Twin Cities. You and Clay are like actively looking for some jobs right now in the Twin Cities area, and you'll be leaving the Gunflint Trail. Is the idea that people come and they move here, and there's an idea of how to make a go at it, and it's hard to find ways to do that up the Gunflint Trail where there's not a lot of job opportunities. There's a lot of seclusion in the winter months and some just kind of brutal conditions as well. And then the summer just a whirlwind and repeat. Like, it's not an easy place to live. And in my time here, I've seen a lot of people come and go from Grand Marais and to a lesser extent the Gunflint area who come there. And I think that's just because fewer people sort of even try to make a go of living up the trail. It's a remote place. Yeah. Especially the end of the trail in the winter. Like, it's just not, the restaurants up there like there is mid-trail and that kind of stuff. So was it hard to live up there? And is that part of this decision? Just kind of, if you would, speak openly about your experiences leaving and where that fits in with this next chapter you're about to start.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that I feel so lucky to have found a year-round job at the end of the Gunflint. Remember, you kind of know the Gunflint, the trail kids, and you get to know that community, but you don't necessarily get to know the locals that live there year-round, and kind of the bigger picture of what the Gunflint community is like, and the Grand Marais community too. But yeah, there were definitely challenges. I think, especially for Clay and I, we're almost in our 30s now, but we are kind of some of the youngest people living on the Gunflint. And we've made really cool relationships with, older adults, retirees, some really interesting relationships that I probably wouldn't have otherwise had. I think,
like the Valentinis of the world, Michael.
Yeah. The Clay's closest friend is our neighbor down the river that he goes fishing with that's retired, and that's kind of his thing. And so it's really fun to have those relationships that we probably wouldn't have had if we had not moved up here. And but that being said, we're in very different places in our life than a lot of other people on the trail are. We're not having kids, we're not we're just kind of still young. And I think that I don't know that is really why we're moving on, but I think that we have really been craving community, and I think that the winters on the trail are definitely quiet, and you see people at bingo night, you see people maybe on the cross country ski trail and stuff like that, but there's not as much of the ease of let's get a beer after work, or let's play pickleball or whatever it may be. It's not quite as easy to have that sense of everyday community.
Yeah, I mean, the drive to Grand Marais, which is also a whole other quiet scene from what maybe podcast listeners are used to when they think of coming up to Grand Marais, and it's hustle and bustle and tourists and shops and all that. It's not even like that here in the winter, let alone at the end of the Gunflint. Yeah. And that drive to town for you is over an hour to get to here, to Grand Marais, right? Yeah. In the winter, I feel it's usually an hour and a half for us. And so, yeah, it's definitely a trek to see any form of people. And that's just to get to this small little town.
Yeah. I know. We went to the Charlie Parr concert, was it last week? And it was 2 hours each way. And we were wow, this is commitment to see Charlie. But I mean, worth it. Yeah. But yeah.
But right. Somebody could drive almost from the cities to Duluth in that time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's just for you to get to Lutzen or to town, or where I forget where Charlie was playing that at the time. But it's a haul.
It is, yeah, for sure. And I think that that's the beauty of it, you really get to know your neighbors because you're so far from anything. We are constantly calling Valentini to help us out or borrow a thing or whatever. It's a really cool, there's a lot of community care on the Gunflint, and I think that's really the biggest thing I've learned is just how important it is to know your neighbors, and how important it is to step up and help the people and get to know them when they need it. And I hope to bring that back to the Twin Cities. I think that there is a lot of that happening throughout the communities in the Twin Cities, but yeah, it wasn't something that I necessarily had when I lived there. I wasn't as tight-knit with all the people in my neighborhood, and I think that'll be something that I hope to to carry with me.
Yeah, to like acknowledge your neighbors in a more sort of relationship based way, as opposed to either just a wave or nothing at all, as some people do in a city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so there are some people who get started on the trail, Baxi and I being two examples of that, who leave the trail, still feel very connected to it, but move closer to town, either in town or right outside of town. Or we live now like 5 miles outside of town. Is that something you and Clay thought about, like moving to Grand Marais or just closer to the shore where it's not 2 hours to get to the concert, it's like 20 minutes, something like that?
Not really. I think that like so much of my love for the Gunflint community and like Cook County is tied to Voyageur. Like I think that I found, like I said, so many of my best friends, including Matt and Cassidy, like they have just been such a huge part of my life. And I love Grand Marais, but I don't really see myself as a town person. Like I think that I am a city girl at heart, and like I think that I liked the juxtaposition between like living in the city and living very, very remote. And I think the in between is like not really my vibe.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. And so with that then in mind, what advice would you have for the next generation, so to say, of people who come to work at an outfitter, fall in love with it like you did, like I did, and want to give it a go and try to either get a more full-time position, year-round position like you and Clay did, but to understand that there are challenges to it, that it's not just like your summer experience. When you do it year-round, there's a whole other thing that's going to happen. What sort of suggestions would you have, or things that you learned that you'd like to pass on that you wish maybe somebody would have told you 10 years ago or 3 years ago? Yeah.
I think that like the biggest thing is it's super romanticized to live like remote in the winter, especially now. I think, there's like influencers and stuff that are like, oh yeah, I live off grid, and it's super romantic, and they don't really talk about like what it's like to haul 20 gallons of water into your dry cabin every 4 days or whatever.
Yes.
Things like that. But really I think that my advice to someone who was thinking about taking that leap would be for sure to do it. Like I think that I've learned so much, both working as a seasonal staff but also working year round. I don't know. I think just do it and you'll learn so much about yourself. And it is super romanticized, but there's so much to learn from it. I think understanding that it's going to be hard and like knowing that you probably won't know what that hard looks like until you actually live it is important. But I don't know. I feel like that wasn't super succinct.
No,
but
I get it. I mean, the romanticized version, as you're saying, like either on a social media reel, like an Instagram reel that's 90 seconds, and it's of course going to show like maybe somebody lighting the fire in the cabin and processing wood and looking out, sipping coffee, and it's like this beautiful, clear morning like this one that we had today. But they're not going to show like the blizzard or the failed infrastructure or just like the brutal hardship of some of the experience, because some of it sucks. And like that's just a big part of living in this kind of harsh landscape, is sometimes it's gonna really be awful, and then you add on top of that like the remoteness, and you're seeing the people you do see even when you love them and you care about them and they're your friends, or whatever relationship you have with them, like you get tired of seeing them sometimes. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, I had a lot of moments for sure our first winter where I was like, what am I getting into? Like I remember one specific incident where we were like on our way out to leave to go visit my family in the cities for Christmas, and walked into the like main office at Voyageur, and it was just completely flooded. Like a pipe had burst upstairs and we had like 4 inches of water. We were like, all right, well, we're not going to family Christmas, but I mean, we ended up making it. But yeah, just like things like that where you're like, you have to be really self-sufficient living so remote, and like, that's your mess to clean up. You don't get to call a plumber. You don't get to like, so it's sometimes brutal, but like those are the character building moments that like I really do feel like I grew up a lot on the Gunflint because of those moments. So yeah.
And what are some other moments that you've had during your time there that stand out as highlights for better or worse or hard or beautiful? You know, like what is just some things you're going to take away as like, that was an incredible experience?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things. Yeah, I think that like I'll try to think of a specific story, but first I think that like I came in as like a 19-year-old to the Gunflint with like so much anxiety. Like I think I was always like a very anxiety ridden kid and student and like everything, and taking the leap to like come up here by myself and not know anyone or really anything about it, like I now looking back on like the person I was then and the person I am now, I think there's been so much growth, and a lot of it is through those like hard and beautiful moments. And yeah, I remember like my first 2 days off working that first summer. I like didn't have days off, or I think we only had 1 day off back then, but yeah, my first 1 day off, I didn't have the same day off as anyone else. And I was like, well, I want to explore the area. Like I'm going to go on a solo trip. Like first, time back in the Boundary Waters since being a Ouija kid, I was like, I got this, like I can do it. But I had so much anxiety about it, and like ended up just like paddling to a campsite on Seagull and just like not sleeping because I was so freaked out and like so anxious to like be camping by myself.
Why was that? What do you attribute that to?
Oh, I don't know. Like I think that I was worried about other people, about bears, about like all those little things that like I was like, at first I was like, oh no, I got this, like I'm an outdoorsy person, I can do it. And then when I actually got out there by myself and it was like quiet at night, I was like totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And now thinking back like on that person and how I just like continued to challenge myself and like try to do things that made me super uncomfortable, and like yeah, how I am now and approach those things now is just so different.
And where did that growth occur, or how? Just by doing it more, or finding confidence in the lifestyle, or what happened?
I think just by doing it. Yeah, like I think that I easily could have let that first experience like deter me from ever wanting to like do a solo trip again or like go in the Boundary Waters again. But yeah, understanding that there was like gonna be anxiety there because that is just a part of who I am, but doing it anyway. I think that's a big thing that I learned is like do it scared, like do it anxious, but like you'll grow from it, and the next time maybe you'll feel a little bit less anxious. And yeah.
Did you do a lot of canoeing and getting into the Boundary Waters during these 10 years?
Yeah, for sure. I think like especially as a crew member, I would try to get out like every day off and like go explore a new entry point, go explore a new area. As a manager, it was a little bit harder to get out. We didn't have as many good stretches of days off, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have tried to almost see every entry point on the Gunflint. I think I'm missing one or two still, but
nice.
Yeah.
So you actually immersed in the place. I mean, it doesn't sound like you were just sort of there because you had a job and that type of approach. You were getting out in the wilderness.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what spots did you find that suited you? I mean, a lot of people who spend a fair amount of time up the trail get, my favorite entry point or my favorite area. And I mean, I think just because I started mid-trail, like that sort of feels like a home base for me. And I know I don't need a map to go in there, either south from Poplar or that, of course, the Duncan's such an easy area, and that, Rose area. But like, so that's my kind of like, it's just like, that feels like home. But did you find any of that for you, specific spots or entry points?
Yeah, I mean, that's funny that you say that, because I think I see that in so many of our customers. Like, they only ever want to go on Sag. Like, that feels like home. I know it like the back of my hand,
Nice.
Driving towboats and exploring it in the winter and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think one of my favorite areas that I like had always felt pulled to was like the Tuscarora, like round that all those small lakes in there with all the really grueling portages in between.
Yeah.
That is definitely a really cool area. I love the small lakes and kind of, the like intimacy of them. So, yeah.
Sag's such an unknown body of water for people, intimidating place for people because it can be unruly and is often it has whitecaps. And were you driving tows?
Yeah, not my first year, but my second summer I started driving towboats, and not as much as a manager, but got to do it as a seasonal staff. So,
Did you have some days that you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is treacherous"?
Yes,
sort of half crazy kind of vibe.
Yeah,
Really?
for
Wow.
sure. Oh my gosh, yeah, it can get so choppy out there. I mean, we get crazy waves. Anybody who's paddled Sag on a windy day has seen it, but we've had some. I mean, the towboats are old as well, so like they like to fill up with water. They get holes in them. If you haven't been to Voyageur before, I know you have, but like for folks listening, we have this like section that we call the Rapids that's on the Seagull River that you have to navigate the towboat around like some giant boulders and know the exact route so that you don't ruin a prop. And so our boats are a little beat up from seeing those days of, learning how to navigate the rapids.
Oh, wow.
So filling up with water was always an issue that we'd have on windy days, and just learning to like navigate in the moment. That's like another element where my anxiety came in for sure as a young staff member. But
I bet, especially when you've got people that are here and they're either starting or ending their trip, and you're responsible for them driving the tow. That seems quite stressful, actually.
Yeah, and I think as a female towboat driver, it's a whole nother element of pressure, because I don't want to say like that's new on the Gunflint, but my first year it definitely wasn't very common to have women towboat drivers, and so going into my second summer, there was a lot of like customers who were like, "You're gonna be my driver? Like, are you sure?" And you're like, "Yeah, I got it." Like, and so you have another element of like almost trying to prove yourself and feeling that imposter syndrome, sort of. So
I see. Yeah. So these would be like old Gunflint or Boundary Waters paddler fishing dudes that are all like,
exactly.
This is our annual trip.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah. Was that something that you and the staff encountered much? Was sort of that kind of sexist gender, like were these old time in Boundary Waters guys step aside?
Yeah, I mean, we have wonderful customers at Voyageur. Like, I think they are definitely the highlight of my job is working with our customers. But I've definitely encountered some of the customers that have doubts in me, even as a manager now, giving routing advice and helping folks like figure out where they want to go on their trips. There's a lot of people questioning if I'm the right person to tell them that information. And Matt and Clay have both been super amazing supports to Cassidy and I in that, because we'll give them fishing advice or tell them what lures to use or what spots to check out, and they'll be like, I think I want to talk to Matt, and Matt will be like in his back office, repeat everything we just had said, and then the customer's like, oh, maybe they do know what they're talking about. It happens, for sure. But like I said, the majority of our customers are amazing and are just excited to be in the Boundary Waters and learn. But every once in a while you get a customer that doesn't quite feel like you're the right person to tell them.
I see. Interesting. And I remember Cassidy was telling me about a guy who's, I think, one of their favorite guests that comes to Voyageur, and he's like an old timer guy, and he goes to the same campsite every year.
Yes.
You know that guy I'm talking
Yep.
about? Did you ever get to meet that guy?
Yeah.
What's his story or deal?
Yeah, he's an amazing customer of ours. He's been coming, I think, since I started working, and he comes every year and just like gets towed out to American Point, paddles into a campsite on Zephyr, and spends his whole time there. He's quite the character. He's just got a lot of funny stories about him. I think Cassidy may have told you this story already, but during the fires when they had to evacuate the Boundary Waters, was that 2021 maybe?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
When they shut down the wilderness.
Yes, when they shut down
during
the
the
Boundary
Greenwood
Waters.
fire and all those fires were burning. Yeah.
Yeah.
21,
Exactly. We knew he was out on Zephyr, and we were like alerted the Forest Service because they were doing evacuations in that area, and they went and found it. But he came back the next year. So, yeah.
Huh. Right on. And you get to have those relationships build over time with repeat customers. I mean, that's such a charm of the place, is like when people come back year after year and it's their annual trip. I mean, I just kind of described some of that, which can be sort of this, authoritative thing that can develop in that, or they just like want it a certain way and that type of thing. But there's also, even that can be beautiful in a gruff kind of way, but there's also just people that are so grateful to like be here in the Boundary Waters and come and spend time with the folks at the outfitter. Like that to them is part of the trip. I mean, like in my conversation with Janice Matichuk at Cache Bay, like people going through there was part of the trip. And I know at Voyageur which is like a very beloved outfitter, like people are going there for the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's so fun to see returning customers that, they want to know about what's going on in your life. They are super involved in like Matt and Cassidy's kids, and like they feel like family almost. And you really just get to build those relationships. It's fun to answer the phone in the winter. They're like, Maddie, like, how are you doing? Like, what's new? How's your winter been? It's super cool. I think it's just so fun to see, like, I mean, this has been my life for the last 3/10 years, and some people, it's like the thing they think about the whole winter. They're planning their Boundary Waters trip. They're thinking about that big vacation of the year. And yeah, it really reminds me how lucky I have been to get to like live that dream almost. Yeah.
Right. I mean, is that something that you think you'll miss in this next season? What are some things you think you will miss about living up there and having these experiences, even some of the hard ones?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much. I think that, the people is a huge one. Like, the customers that come back every year, the homeowners on Saginaga that we have a really good relationship with at Voyageur, seeing those people come back. Yeah. The community I'll miss so much. And seeing people at bingo night, seeing people, running into people out in the Boundary Waters. The people really just make the place. I mean, obviously, everyone loves the Boundary Waters for the place that it is and the beauty that it holds. But I think living here for so long, it's really honed in that like the people make it too. And I think that's what I'll miss the most. Like, especially, and the quiet mornings and the, the peace and all of that too. But
well, and you were part of the people that were making the place. Like you and Clay, the fact you're leaving, and the reason that is of significance isn't just because there's, this change in an outfitter's employment and who's working at a business up the Gunflint. It's like you, over 10 years, became part of this place for people. So when they called in the winter and you answered and it was, hey, Manny, what's up? Like there was recognition there. And now that's going to change and you're leaving. Yeah. And that's why this is like a thing, is that you became part of the fabric of the place and now you're not going to be here anymore. Yeah. Like, does that resonate? Has that kind of sunk in, that the fact that you are leaving is of significance, not just for you, but for the place?
Yeah, I feel like that hasn't really sunk in for me at all. I think that, I mean, I've always remained connected to Voyageur, even when even between those college summers and when I was working other jobs and things like that. But yeah, it's really crazy to think about that. I think I've mostly thought about like the impact everyone else has had on me and not as much about the impact that I've necessarily had on the community. But, that's an interesting perspective.
And so what's next? What are you going to be doing like in the cities, or what do you hope to be doing down there? I'm on the job hunt right now. I think, like I said, I have an environmental studies degree, and I think that a lot of the jobs that I've worked before have involved working with youth and like youth from diverse backgrounds. I think that's something that I've really enjoyed, and something that I'm kind of looking to get back into. I think
one of my favorite parts about working at Voyageur has been like introducing people to the Boundary Waters for the first time. Like I love our repeat customers. Obviously, I have really good relationships with them, but like whenever I get a group who's never been to the Boundary Waters before, like getting to see them like come back from their trip and they're just like eyes sparkling is so big to me. So I really want to find something where I can like get that experience of like connecting someone to a new resource for the first time, whatever that may be. That's kind of broad, but yeah.
I mean, and there are organizations like that in the cities that have connections to the Boundary Waters, like Project Success and some of those organizations that like bring and introduce people to the wilderness. It seems like maybe that is aligning, or would be, you know, maybe if not that specific organization, like something else that could keep you connected to the place. Would that be of interest?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to be able to work somewhere that kept me connected to the Boundary Waters. And I mean, even on a more wide frame, like I think just introducing people to the outdoors for the first time has always been really cool to me. So whether that's the Boundary Waters or their local waterway, the Mississippi, the, you know, Lake Nokomis, whatever it may be, like I think that is something that really excites me. So we'll see how that takes form, but I'm sure that I'm going to remain connected to this area in some way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did you get involved in like some of the trail committee groups, volunteer organization things? Were you involved in any of that scene up there? Yeah,
a little bit. I'm on the volunteer fire department. I've joined 2 years ago. So, that's been a really cool way to be a part of the community. And, like I said, kind of get to know the year-round residents. And, that's been one of the coolest ways that I've really, like, put in my, how do I want to say that? Like, really, like, planted myself in this community and kind of immersed myself in it.
Got your cred up the trail.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes, Maddie, you did. I mean, I know in talking with Michael Valentini, you know, your name had come up and just conversations about trail life and so forth. And Andy at Tuscarora and I were talking last summer about, you know, the younger people and people getting involved, and your name came up. And so you were very much woven in with the trail life and that end of the trail in particular, and that a lot of people are probably gonna miss you. I'm sure that like when you and Clay said that you two were leaving, it wasn't just Matt and Cassidy that were like, all right, you know, we're gonna big shoes to fill here. And it does sound like there's another couple with some trail experience that are gonna be stepping in and living in the yurt and hanging out at and working at Voyageur, but it's of significance that you'll be leaving, and we've appreciated being able to encounter you when we're up doing stories for the podcast up there. But all best on your next chapter, and hopefully when you make that first canoe trip post your time up living up here, that you'll think about maybe sending an email to us or being like, hey, here's what our experience was like, because I'd be curious to know how it feels for you when you're gone for a while and then re-enter the world, like what that experience is like for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I know for sure that it'll probably feel like coming home, and I think that it always will feel like coming home when I get back to this community. So yeah.
Well, pleasure to talk with you today, Maddie, and again, all best on your next chapter to both you and Clay. We're talking with Maddy Frawley. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is, of course, the audio version of the podcast. There is, for this conversation that you just heard with Maddie, the video version of it as well. You can find it on our YouTube channel, Paddle and Portage on YouTube, and you can see Maddie, and there's also some photos of her as well as the conversation from the P&P headquarters in Grand Marais when Maddie came down.
Audio, video, photos, media, website, platforms. I can't even keep track of them all. We got things flying out in every direction these days.
Well, and the key to it all is the support of you, people who listen to the podcast. If you want to go to paddleandportage.com and subscribe to the platform that assists us to be able to tell these stories that we're sharing about Maddie, do the video component, get us over to places like Canoecopia so we can keep sharing these stories. So it's all linked together, even though you're describing it like the monthly or the annual.
Yeah, it keeps us going. And, most people that I talk to at least really love and value what we're doing and want to support it and ask how they can support it. And the easiest way to start is becoming a Paddle and Portage member, and it makes everything possible.
That's right. And there's also the option for a one-time contribution. So if you just wanted to send some cash because this episode or another episode resonated with you, or you're already a subscriber and you just want to add an additional contribution, you can do that too.
Well, like people who don't like us but like Maddy.
Pretty much, yeah. Or Aaron Walker or Ryan or Pam Ryder down the line.
I realize we're not for everybody, but, I like to say Paddle and Portage has something for everybody. And I think Aaron's a huge part of that. And Ryan and all the guests we have, they're all great. Huge thanks to all of them for being a part of the story of Paddle and Portage and the stories of their lives.
And thanks to Maddy again for coming down and sharing a snippet into her decade on the Gunflint Trail, and we wish her all the success moving forward in her next chapter. And you can tell, particularly watching the video, where this place is always going to have a spot in her heart and her life. And once you're at the end of the Gunflint for 10 years like that and living in the yurt and on site for those last 3 as the manager, like, this is a fabric of her life story now, the Gunflint Trail.
We wish you all the best, Maddy, because you've given all your best to this community, and we're grateful. And come back and see us.
Meanwhile, Culvert Wars continue.
I'm going to smash this ice. Look at this, bro. I'm going to take the drop.
Easy now. Easy now. That shale, that stuff will explode in 1,000 pieces.